You were discussing that potentially this space, and it would almost be remiss of cabinet ministers not to plan for the contingency, however unlikely they may believe it to be. It would almost be remiss of them to not think what happens if Sir Keir Starmer resigns.
Yeah, and I think there's two different things going on. I think it's entirely legitimate to have aspirations and one day, maybe aim for higher office within your party or within government. But what I don't think was happening was a leadership move here. I don't think that, because you have to bear in mind, Wes Streeting has a marginal seat, majority of about 5,000 in Ilford North. I've campaigned there. Kim Leadbeater in West Yorkshire has a very marginal seat of just a few hundred. So it's quite normal that in a period of opposition, Labour MPs do have these extra fundraisers. Remember, the party itself gets less state funding now because it has fewer MPs. But that's how these things end up in the papers, because you have Keir Starmer talking about his leadership, and then you have Labour MPs, quite legitimately in my mind, raising funds so they can fight their own seats. But the Sunday newspapers merge these two together and become very excited as a result.
Suppose some discussions must have taken place, though, because we are hearing certain names that might want to throw their hat in the ring. Last weekend, Lisa Nandy seemed to sort of almost present a leadership pitch-style answer to a question asked of her on a Sunday morning programme. Potentially, we're looking at everyone from Lisa Nandy, maybe Yvette Cooper, maybe Rachel Reeves, maybe Louise Hay, and maybe Wes Streeting. Is that a sort of field that would make sense to you?
But Tom, that's been the case in politics for the last 500 years. And it's the same in football and transfer gossip. We like to talk about the change that's happening around the corner rather than something that's happening today. So, of course, when Labour have lost a lot of elections, it's entirely understandable that people in the media like you and I think about who could be the next leader. But cast your mind back a few years. Remember all the quote-unquote challengers to David Cameron, who never materialised, whether that was Boris Johnson as Mayor of London or Adam Frey, a backbencher, or even at one point whether Cameron has had a falling out with George Osborne. Actual attempts to remove a sitting leader are incredibly rare. I think, in recent decades, we've had Ian Duncan-Smith in the Tories and Corbyn on Labour. And I think there's a huge amount of speculation, which is fine, because politicians have aspirations and want to lead their party. But the idea that we're anything other than a million miles away from this just seems untrue. I think Keir Starmer has essentially put everything on ice by this huge gambit with Durham Police. I'm confident he'll come back and be cleared. But until that finally happens in around 7 or 8 weeks' time, there's going to be this great frenzy about who the next Labour candidate might be, whether that's in 8 weeks' time or 8 years' time after Keir Starmer wins an election and gets into Downing Street.